Rio de Janeiro with a big man.
Welcome to Rio de Janeiro. This is Abid Imam. On this show, I'm joined by former Australian cricketer and Western Australia's domestic champion coach, Adam Voges. He's actually a lad from my local club, Melville, and he's gone on to achieve at the highest level of the game. So there's a bit of excitement at getting him on the show, given that connection. In this conversation, I wanted to break new ground. So while we touched upon his well-spoken about cricket playing career, we discussed how he's become a championship coach in Australian domestic cricket across all three formats. You can expect an upbeat conversation where we dug deeper on his philosophies and practices in leading teams at a high-performing level. Thanks a lot to Sightbeat for supporting the show and yourself for listening. Any way you can support is appreciated, such as just mentioning it to a mate. Please enjoy Adam Voges. Adam, it's a real pleasure to have you on Rio de Janeiro. It's quite surreal for myself because growing up around the Melville Cricket Club, a great club which we'll talk about, you were coming through the ranks, and for a young aspiring cricketer to see someone from your own club go on to achieve the success you did was really inspiring. And while I didn't go on to cricket success, I still work in sport myself, and this is exciting to have you on, mate. So welcome.
Thank you. No, thanks, Abid, for having me. And obviously looking forward to our chat.
I know you spent some time when you were younger in Kalgoorlie, and the listener might not know that, Perth is extremely remote itself. But then when you talk about a place that's 600 kilometers away from here, what are some of those memories growing up in a town like Kalgoorlie to start off?
Yeah, well, my dad was a school teacher, and with that we travelled around a little bit during our childhood. But I was very young when we lived in Kalgoorlie. I went to primary school in year 2 in Kalgoorlie. So very, very long time ago, but have been back a number of times since then. And some fond memories of the time there. But obviously being very young, but Dad being a school teacher meant that we did jump around a little bit when I was younger, and spent a number of time at a number of places. But we're in Kalgoorlie for 2 years, which was very enjoyable at the time, albeit I was pretty young.
On the sporting front, what's really fascinating with a lot of athletes is to hear about the different sports they tried at an early age. There seems to be research around, the importance of not specializing in a certain sport, especially young. So what were your journeys getting involved in community sport and then cricket?
Yeah, I'm a big believer of trying everything. I've got a couple of young kids now as well, and very keen for them to try and explore different sports. And I believe that sport in general helps in a lot of ways with teamwork, with becoming part of a group, with the disciplines around being part of a team. But for me personally, I tried everything. I did footy, cricket, t-ball, soccer, basketball, anything that I could possibly try. My parents were willing to drive me to. I had a crack at. So, but again, I honestly believe that trying and playing those other sports, no doubt, had a benefit for me to my cricketing career down the track. But just the skills and being part of a team, I think, is hugely important as well.
We'll fast forward a little bit to Melville Cricket Club, a place that was very influential in the early stages of your elite career. Tell me about what made Melville Cricket Club so special, because when we look at the Australian cricket team, every player has had to come through the club system, and it's 3 tiers down from international cricket, or a couple of steps away, but it's not professional. Tell us about that culture at the club and what it was like specifically there.
Yeah, I still remember my first meeting with the president and coach at the time. I'd grown up in Rockingham, played played junior cricket and some lower grade cricket at Rockingham. And at the time, they didn't have a first grade team, so I needed to find somewhere to keep progressing my cricket. And I rocked up to the meeting, and the president rocked up in his BMW, and I thought, oh, well, that's a good start. This might be a nice club. But I think what attracted me to Melville was just the calibre of people who were there. All throughout my 20 plus years that I was at Melville, I absolutely loved the place. It felt like home every time I was able to come back, whether I'd been away playing or hadn't been down the club for a little period of time. It was just a place that I always loved coming back to. And we had some wonderful players, and we had a really successful period during the early 2000s. We won a number of flags, and I've made friends that I still regularly keep in contact from the Melville Cricket Club. So for me and for all of our players, particularly in Western Australia and their development and their pathway, Premier Cricket Club cricket is a really important part of that. So I always love going back. I always love being able to play for Melville whenever I could, and still try and get down to the club when I can.
There were a disproportionate amount of players who ended up going on to play for state or international representation, yourself and Dimitri Mascarenhas, the Mulemans, Sean Terry, who's been on this show as well. Sean's dad, Paul, was a really key mentor for you. Tell us about that relationship and how he came onto the radar as well.
Yeah, I first started working with Paul during my underage representative start of my career, under 15s, under 17s, and came across Paul, obviously a wonderful player in his own right, had a hugely successful career in England for Hampshire and had played Test cricket. So when he had gone to Melville and was coaching Melville at the time when I made the move, having that relationship with Paul made that transition a lot easier. And he was very influential in my career, particularly early on when I was finding my way in Premier Cricket. I know he's still the director of cricket down at Melville now, which is fantastic that they've got someone of his calibre still involved in the club. So again, like any cricketer, any sports person, you'll have a number of mentors along the way who have a huge impact and influence in your life, and Paul was certainly one of them.
Right now, you're wearing the WA badge on your chest, and that's the next step that you made in your career. You walked into a dressing room with the likes of Mike Hussey, who we know bided his time to get his first baggy green as well. What was it like to make that step from Premier cricket to now that professional standard and being full time?
Look, it was, again, from the time that I was old enough to pick up a bat, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play cricket for my country, for my state, and so I was really clear on what I wanted to do. It was about getting out there and doing the work and being good enough to perform and get those opportunities. But for me, I mean the journey and the career path that I had as a player was a different one. I started as a left arm wrist spinner. I played all of my junior cricket. I represented the Australian under-19s over in England in 1999, primarily as a left arm wrist spinner who batted at 9. That's how I first started my first grade career with Melville as well. I went to the Cricket Academy in 2000, and that's probably where my batting started to develop. And I guess from that period, from 2000 to when I made my debut in 2002, there was a pretty big shift in who I was as a player. I went from a left arm wrist spinner who batted 8 or 9 to someone who the leggies weren't coming out particularly well, had to do a bit more work on my batting. And during that period, that 2-year period, invested a lot of time and actually made my first class debut in December 2002, batting at 5 for Western Australia as an out batter. So pretty big shift to go from, I guess, one discipline to another. But yeah, that was how I made my career, I guess, was making that shift.
When you have gone on to play for Australia 2015, age 35, were you always aiming to play for Australia, or was it something where you just had to do the hard work and see where it took you?
Oh no, look, I always wanted to play for Australia, and during that period from my first class debut to my Test debut, and there's a big gap. There's 13 years in there, but I was lucky enough, played some white ball cricket, T20 cricket, one-day cricket for Australia, and was on the fringes of squads a lot of the time. And I'll be the first to admit that particularly from a red ball and a first class point of view, I just didn't demand selection in terms of performance. I never really knocked the door down, and it probably wasn't until after I knew that my white ball career with Australia had finished that I guess that distraction of wanting to play cricket for Australia was removed, and I was able just to really focus on what I was doing in Western Australia. I was captain of WA at the time. Justin Langer had come on board as coach, and we were working really well together. And I was just really enjoying my cricket. And from that came a couple of really successful seasons in Sheffield Shield cricket with the bat. And then, yeah, albeit at a very late age of 35, I got the nod. And I guess getting that phone call from Rod Marsh, who was the chairman of selectors at the time, was pretty surreal. When you think that opportunity has passed you by, for then that to be presented to you again was something really fortunate and really lucky to have got. And when you're at 35 and you're making your debut, you probably know you're there for a good time, not a long time, and that's sort of how I try to go about it. That's the approach I took. I knew that it wasn't going to last forever, so I wanted to have as much fun and enjoy it as much as I possibly could during that period. And I was in career best form when I got picked, and sometimes timing is everything. Was lucky enough to, over the next sort of 18, 24 months, have a pretty successful international career. So, there was a lot of hard graft to get me to that point, and probably at times thought that it might not happen. But yeah, actually very thankful and lucky that it did.
Persistence and perseverance. And we did fast forward quite a bit there. And that's sort of deliberate because you have talked about your career and what you've done afterwards. You know, when you go on your Wikipedia page for Adam Voges, there's nothing about your coaching at the moment, which is an area that you've been so incredibly successful. You did touch upon Justin Langer. And before we get into the coaching, I'm really fascinated about that captain-coach relationship and forming that with JL. It's really unique in cricket because the captain is such an extension of that coach on the field and makes some really massive decisions. How do you manage that type of relationship? What does that look like in cricket?
Yeah, your captain-coach relationship's your most important in cricket. As you mentioned, it's not like other sports where the coach can make a lot of, I guess, real-time decisions when the game's happening. A lot of that responsibility is entrusted to the captain, and so the role of the coach, particularly in cricket, is about the preparation of the players and making sure that they're as ready as they can be to when they step onto the field and be able to perform, but also that ability to make sure that the captain is as well prepared as he possibly can be, because ultimately he's the one making the decisions out on the field. And Justin and I had a really close relationship with when we worked together, and it's something that now that I'm on the coaching side, certainly invested a lot of time into working with our captains to make sure that we have a really close relationship, really strong communication about what we're thinking, what we're planning, what we're trying to do, but then ultimately giving them the trust and the ability to make their own decisions in the heat of battle out in the middle. And we don't always get it right. That's okay. But yeah, having that really strong dynamic and that strong relationship's pretty crucial.
Before we dig deeper into your coaching rise, there's been talk about the centuries you made at Test level, averaging 61. You've said that your highlight was scoring that century against New Zealand at the Wacker for Australia, which is your home deck. Was there an innings where you felt your absolute best? So it might not have been at international level, but one that you reflect on where you're just in that flow state and you were unstoppable.
Well, yeah, I talk to our players a bit about that. I sort of say to them that because a lot of our players and a lot of the young guys coming through now, they're real perfectionists and they want everything to be perfect all the time. And I keep saying to them, I reckon I can count on one hand how many times I felt like everything worked exactly how I wanted it to during my career. And I probably reflect on the double hundred down in Hobart against the West Indies, where Sean Marsh and I put on. We had a record partnership down there, and we won that test pretty comfortably. But it was one of the times that I look back on that innings and watch the highlights of that innings, and I don't remember a lot of it because I guess I was in a place zone, whatever you want to call it, where I just, for whatever reason, was in that moment and don't actually recollect a lot of what happened in that innings, but it was one of the ones that I just remember thinking it's one of the very few times I felt like I was actually in control of what was happening out there. So as a batter, again, you're always reacting to what's coming at you. What the bowler delivers to you decides on or makes you decide on how you react to that. But it was one of the very few times that I remember going out to bat or being at the end of an over and feeling that I actually had some control over what was happening. So, yeah, pretty special to be able to share that with Sean. We're great mates. We still work really closely together for WA. So, but that was, if I had to pick a time, probably that innings down in Hobart was one of them.
Well, we talk about that one because it was a partnership in excess of 400 runs, and who knows how many hours you're out there batting. Something that is unique about cricket is just the long format of the game and how long you need to be concentrating for. So how did you develop that mental endurance and fortitude? Were there some tactics that really helped you in between deliveries? How was that done?
Yeah, routine is probably the word that comes to mind. From a mental perspective, routines about how you prepare the night before a game, whether I was playing for Melville or whether I was playing for Australia, I tried to keep that consistent in terms of what I would do. I would write down the night before about who the bowlers I were going to face, how I thought they were going to try and get me out, and then what was how I was going to try and go about it. And that I didn't always have that information, but for me that was just a consistent process. So my mental readiness for the game always started the night before, and then when you're out in the middle, routine of how you walk out to the middle, how you take guard, how you got yourself ready to face that first ball, but then also in between balls, it was what was the routine about walking away, trying to think about anything other than what had just happened. And I hear cricketers and speak to cricketers who bat for periods of time. What were you thinking about? And some guys are thinking about renovations in their house. Some are thinking about what they need to do in the garden. Something just to take their mind off what's just happened, but ability to be able to switch off and then switch back on again when they need to, when the bowler's about to deliver the ball. So we only have a certain amount of concentration in us before we wear ourselves out. So that ability to be able to switch on, switch off is actually really crucial if you want to be able to bat for long periods of time.
I'm also fascinated by your cricket around the world. Not many people have been able to say that, they worked at Rajasthan or Jamaica. How did that shape you as a person, just being able to ply your trade in different cultures and contexts?
Again, the game has taken me to all corners of the globe, and I'm incredibly lucky and thankful for that. But yeah, to be able to, I spent 10 years over in England playing county cricket for Nottinghamshire and Middlesex. I got the opportunity to play at Rajasthan. I got the opportunity to play at the Jamaican Tallawahs and play with some wonderful players, Shane Warne, Chris Gale at Jamaica. So just to be able to not only experience the different conditions, but be part of different teams, find out how different teams work, different cultures, and just be part of different organisations but also be able to learn off some of the best players in the world too. So I was incredibly lucky in that sense. I certainly promote it to all of our players to go out and play and experience the world. We spend a lot of time here, and we're just in our off season at the moment, beginning our pre-season. And I tried, as a player, I tried to avoid pre-season as much as I possibly could. I wanted to go and play cricket. That's what I wanted to do, and I certainly encourage our guys to go and do the same thing, because you learn about yourself, you learn about playing in different conditions, you learn about your game, and you don't always have a coach or a mentor there to be able to guide you through it. Sometimes you just got to learn it by yourself, and some of those experiences, they weren't always successful, but always had a wonderful time, and was really lucky to get those opportunities.
When we look at 2018, a time where there was a bit of upheaval within Australian cricket with the Sandpaper Gates, and then you also became a coach for WA in all three formats. Tell us about that time, because you actually had just finished your career at an elite level, and you spent some time with the under-19s, and all of a sudden you're now the coach of WA, making that jump. What are your reflections on that?
Yeah, accidental opportunity, I call it. I was actually over in South Africa doing a bit of commentary work when Sandpaper Gate happened, and probably didn't know at the time the series of events that would unfold, and me ending up where I have ended up. But obviously with Justin taking over the Australian coaching role, there was an opportunity here in WA. I'd already we'd already had some plans for me to continue my coaching, but in a different role. I was going to be assistant coach at the Scorchers. I was going to lead one of the pathway teams, and so I was going to continue my coaching journey that way. But then all of a sudden this opportunity presents, and I was probably a little bit naive at the time, and thought that I've played cricket for a long time. I can be a coach. I know the game, and so put my hand up and was fortunate enough to get the job, but probably jumped into the deep end a little bit in terms of experience and knowledge and understanding exactly what coaching is about. And so it was a pretty quick learning curve for me personally. Dealing with guys that I'd played a lot with was certainly something that I still deal with at the moment. I'm better equipped for it now, but just the ability to go from a player to a captain who leads the team, to then a coach who's responsible for everyone in the whole program. It was a very big step up for me, and I'll be the first to admit that I've made a few mistakes along the way. There's no doubt about that, but I'm certainly a different and a better coach now than what I was when I first started.
When you first started, I'm guessing you have come in and tried to have some team values. What's the process of instilling values or trying to elicit them from the team, making sure there's buy-in from your players? How does that look at an elite cricket level?
Yeah, we're very much values-based in WA cricket, and it's the basis of everything that we do. Our trademark and our values, they dictate how we behave, how we make decisions, how we go about our day-to-day business, and they're crucial to what we do. When Justin first came into the job as WA coach, he came in and instilled some really strong values, and that worked incredibly well for us for a long period of time. And after a year in the job here, I felt there was an opportunity to evolve our values, and we had a different playing group by that stage. We had different coaches, we had different staff, so the opportunity for everyone to be a part of that process and actually decide who we want to be and what do we actually want to be about, like what gets us out of bed, what motivates us to come in and do what we do day in, day out. And so that was a process we did 3 years ago now, which then established our values and our trademark at WA Cricket. We're able to then put some behaviours around each of those values, and what does humility look like? What does being committed look like? What does trust look like? And so each year we talk about those values. Each day, each game, we talk about those values and how we bring them to life. We have a jacket that's hanging up in my office at the moment that we award to the person who we think instills out and displays our values on a regular basis. Our awards at the end of each game are based on our values. They're not based on performance. So there's a lot of things that we try and do in the background to make sure that day in, day out, we're trying to live to those values and to that trademark. And again, as I said, that it's the basis of what we do and how we go about our business.
Now, the challenge for yourself as well is coaching across 3 different formats of the game, which are very distinct. How do you manage that? And having an extended playing group, some players are specialists in the T20 and some are the long form. Just talk us through how you manage that.
Yeah, it keeps me busy. I won't lie. We've got 30 in our Western Australian squad. We've got 18 in our Scorchers squad. There's some crossover, but I think there's roughly about 40 players when you include our internationals that come in for the Big Bash. There's generally about 40 players that are on one list or the other. And on my whiteboard at the moment, I can see in my office, I've got names everywhere. We've got guys in Sri Lanka at the moment. We've got guys in the UK. We've got guys going up to Darwin. We've got guys here in Perth as well. So keeping tabs on everyone and just making sure that we've got touch points with everyone's really important. But yeah, also that ability to, and I think our absolute competitive advantage with Western Australia and the Perth Scorchers is having continuity, or as much continuity as we can with our lists. We've got some of the best T20 players in the world, so unfortunately we don't get to keep them all for the Scorchers, but we try and keep as many as we possibly can, and then we fill in the gaps where we need to. So that ability to work with cricketers 12 months of the year, but also be able to know that you've got guys who are going to come into your program for a short period of time, and how do you have an impact on them? How do you keep connection with them outside of those times, but also how do you help them develop as well? So that's where I'm very lucky in terms of our coaching staff, the people that I have around me that certainly help in that area. But yeah, it keeps us on our toes, just the amount of players that we've got who are in different parts of the world at different times, and the comings and goings, but just making sure that we're across where they're at and hopefully helping them continue to progress their career.
You're right across it right now. Do you feel that in the future, cricket might head to a state where you have specialist head coach for each of those formats of the game?
Yeah, you will, no doubt. I think we're starting to see it in international cricket. I think you've seen with the appointments in England with Brendan McCullum, Matthew Mott, 2 separate head coaches for different formats of the game. I think you will see in our state system, there's a number of states that their state coach is different to their Big Bash coach, albeit some have actually realigned that and do what we do. So there's absolutely pros and cons for both ways of doing it. The thing that I love about being able to coach all formats of the game is just that connection that I get with the players all year round, and that consistency of messaging and how we want to go about playing our cricket is something that I really love. But equally, a fresh voice, different ideas, different thoughts about the game can equally be as effective as well. So it's about workload at the end of the day. Coaching all 3 formats is a big job, but having that faith and trust that I do in my assistants and the people around me to step in when I need a bit of a chop out is crucial to all of that. And the reason why we're able to be successful is the group that I have around me that makes us work really well.
The success that you just mentioned is, for the listener, Sheffield Shield champions, Big Bash champions and one day domestic champions as well. The three-peat in one season. I'm thinking that connection is a very important thing for yourself with your players, as you've talked about. How does that look for you when you've got an extended list of players across the world? How do you connect with the modern cricketer as well, who is a younger person, a different creature? What's your philosophy?
Absolutely, they're different creatures. We don't listen to the same music. We don't wear the same clothes. We are very different in that sense. But what we always have in common is love for the game of cricket, and so we can always get back to that. We've always got something to bond about, I guess. But it's also about just making the effort to reach out on a consistent basis and make sure that whether you're here in Perth at the moment, or whether you're in Sri Lanka playing for your country, or whether you're in England playing for a county team at the moment, I've still got regular touch points with you just to check in, see how you're going, making sure everything's okay, understanding that when you get back into our system, having a really good catch-up piece with the players then. But just reaching out and making sure that everything's okay. And it doesn't have to be much. It might just be a text message or a WhatsApp, or just a brief. And some players, as you learn over time, some are really good at getting back to you. Some read your message and don't get back to you. And that's okay as well. But just so that they know that we're thinking of them, we're watching how they're going. We're there to help and assist if they need us at the time. But equally respectful and happy for them to just be present in where they are at the time, and look forward to when they get back.
Yeah, and it's so exciting for those cricketers to be in different setups as well. But you do think about how each setup has their own set of values and their own environment and culture. I was just reading about the Australian cricket team who, change of coaches, change of setup, and some of the key words that they're using are owning your space and autonomy, self-sufficiency, relaxation. How important is that type of setup to yourself in terms of that individual game, but still in a collective context? How do you have that balance?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think empowerment's a word that I like to reference, particularly with our players, and us as a coaching group being able to empower them to make a lot of decisions about their career and how they want to go about their cricket, and bring them along for the ride and the journey. The days of the coach telling someone what to do are probably gone, certainly in a cricketing sense, and having that collaborative approach to decision making. I'll still ultimately have the final say, but bringing the players in those areas, but also upskilling them and upgrading them in areas of leadership and personal development, and helping them along the way. But I always say to the players, we're here to always lean on your coaches, but never rely on your coaches. You ultimately are in charge of your career and the decisions that you make. We're here to help and support that. But ultimately, you're responsible for what happens in your career. So today's player wants to be more involved in every part of what happens around them. And so it's about bringing them into that, allowing them to have that opportunity to raise their questions, concerns, approvals, and then be able to be collaborative in the way that we go about playing our cricket and some of the decisions we make. So it's a shift. There's no doubt about that. But the most important bit is being able to equip our players to be able to do a lot of that sort of stuff. So that's what we've tried to focus on over the last couple of years, and we've seen some pretty good results from it.
As a player, I've heard you say that one of your strengths was being able to deliver tough messages and have those honest conversations. As a coach, is it easier because you've got more authority, or have you had to change your tack with how you do that? It's personally for myself, it's one of my bits of kryptonite. Having tough conversations is not easy for anyone. I'm just interested in how you made that a strength for yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if it is a full strength, and you're spot on. No one enjoys doing it. But in this role, I do it semi-regularly. So you have to. I guess there's a method that I try and use, and I guess the biggest thing I try and work with when I talk in having those tough conversations is just talking about the facts. If you're talking about facts when you're delivering tough messages, then that's the basis of what the message is generally about, and it's hard for the other party to dispute the facts. So that's generally what I base any of those really tough conversations, whether it's on the selection table, whether it's about list management, whether it's about a bloke who's rocked up late to training. It's the daily conversations that happen, but I always go back to, well, what's the fact around why we're having this conversation, and that's generally what I try and stick to when we have those conversations. But they're never easy, and they're not enjoyable, but they're a part of life.
We talk about leadership in a sports context right now, but so much of it is transferable to a corporate environment or in other spheres of life. How have you evolved over the last 4 years as a leader at that level? Have you gone on courses? Has there been anything that's been really useful for yourself?
Yeah, I certainly try and do a little bit of personal development along the way. I went and met with a mindset coach last year, and I got a lot of feedback around emotional control and ability to stay level, particularly in high pressure situations. And that was something that I've worked on over the last 12 months. I'm part of a leadership group where I connect on a fortnightly basis with other leaders in different industries. And as you mentioned, leadership, whether it's in sport or property or hospitality, or it's leadership and managing people. And so the same issues, the same questions arise. So that ability to talk to people in different industries who are leaders in their own right, and understand the ways that they go about it, the hacks or the tricks that they've used in their career is something that's really refreshing. And again, we're not competing against each other, so it's open slather. We can tell each other about problems and help try and solve it for each other. And I found that really, really useful as well. I'm not a huge reader. I do read, but I'm not a huge reader. So I love interacting with people. I get energy out of speaking with people, and so that for me is the best way that I've found to help in my self-development. So yeah, that's something that just ticks along in the background. It's something that I really enjoy doing, but yeah, hopefully can continue to help me in my current role.
I'm also very fascinated, Adam, about the team behind the scenes. So yes, the public gets to see what's happening on the field and the byproduct of the things that we've just talked about. But I'm fascinated with how the game has evolved in terms of the off-field staffing, the different apps and platforms that are used to help you in technology. How have you got a grasp of all of that? And what are some of those new services that weren't available to yourself as a player that now the current crop can lean on?
Yeah, it's a good question. As I've sort of mentioned a couple of times, I've got a wonderful team around me, and I'm incredibly lucky from the top down. Christina Matthews, our CEO, Kate Harvey, our high performance manager, who's my boss. The support that I get, particularly from those two, is huge. In a role where ultimately you're judged on performances. When you get the support that I do from above, it makes my job and my life a lot easier. And then the coaches and the strength and conditioning staff that we have around us, in my opinion, some of the best in their field. And so incredibly lucky that I can put a lot of faith and trust into those people and know that they're going to do their job really well. The players are spoiled for the quality of people that they've got around them as well in helping them in their journey. But also our ability, even our analyst, who's, in my opinion, he sets the standard. He's a big part of, particularly in T20 cricket, when you do a lot of analytics around opposition and grounds and your own team. He leads the way in that sort of stuff and is a huge value to us. But yeah, it's we have so many different apps and devices and things that are available to us now that you've got so much to work with. You've just got to work out what's actually useful and what's going to give you the best bang for your buck. So we have things like we have footage at every training session. We have after a T20 game, our players will have a cut up package of their footage delivered to them within 15 minutes of the game finishing. Just these sort of things that we put in place to obviously continue to try and grow and improve our program. And there's all new cool stuff out there all the time. And I think being a coach and being in high performance, you've got to be curious about what else is out there, what else can help you, what else can make your team and your program even better. So we're always on the lookout for that sort of stuff and how we can get better. But yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff out there, I reckon.
How we can get better. That's one I want to talk about, because you are at the top of your game. You're now the hunted by in all the competitions. So there's still a glimmer in your eye, and I see there's the hunger to still stay at the top. So what is the strategy there? Because it's a different position you're in now.
It is, yeah, absolutely. With success comes different challenges, and that's exciting, and it's new for us. It was 23 years since we've won the Sheffield Shield, so that idea of becoming the hunted, as you mentioned, is something that's relatively new for this group. But I guess I rewind 12 months ago, and we'd played in 2 finals the previous year. We'd lost the One Day Cup final, we'd lost the Big Bash final. We'd missed out on playing the Shield final by 1 game. So we were really close, and I spoke to our players in our group about, I thought we were a good team, but I didn't think we were a great team. And that was the challenge to our group and to our coaches and our staff was, well, how do we go from being good to great? And we sat down, we identified a few things. We knew we were doing a lot of things right, but we sat down and we identified a few of those things. And you fast forward 12 months and we've won 3 titles, and we came back as a group last week, and I asked the playing group the same question. I challenged you, are we from being good to great? I said, are we great yet? And their answer was no. So and that was really, I guess, pleasing to hear that they and we all felt that there's still improvement there. And yes, we had a great season, but we want to be judged on I guess being able to be successful over a longer period of time. And that's what's going to drive us. We've got an incredibly strong and talented squad. We've got some young guys on the periphery of our team that are desperate to try and get a game. And I think that'll continue to keep those competitive juices flowing within our squad and keep each other pushing really hard to keep their spot or try and earn a spot in our team. So there's plenty of good stuff that we can still continue to do and continue to try and keep our neck above water, I guess, and try and keep the challenges away. There's a lot of hard work that goes into that. I use the quote that success is never owned, it's just rented, and rent is due every day. So every day we've got to keep rocking up, trying to find ways to get better. And if we continue to do that and we continue to build our program and the things that we do on a daily basis, well, then the results will look after themselves and we'll continue to hopefully be successful. But we'll continue to worry about that side of things, and we'll back that we've got a really talented squad to hopefully have sustained success.
To have those types of young, talented players come through and keep that culture of success continuing. You look at the great players in WA cricket history, it does beg the question, what's in the water here? I mean, why is WA cricket producing so many superstars who are going on to international level? You've got 8 players in Sri Lanka at the moment. Once again, disproportionate in terms of Western Australia's population. What is it about our cricket system here?
That's a good question. And I don't have a simple answer for you, but I think the program that we do run and our ability to develop players is a huge part of that. So we want to win things. We want to win titles. We want to be ultra competitive, but ultimately we want to produce Australian cricketers. And so that's a big focus for us. And that goes down to how we pick squads, how we develop players, how our underage and our pathway programs work. That ability to develop a young 15-year-old Jai Richardson all the way through to him making his Test debut. There's a lot of pieces in the puzzle that go into that progression and that development. Young Cameron Green. So we're very aware of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. And then ultimately it's about the player and their dedication and their desire to achieve at the absolute highest level. And yeah, we're lucky we've got some really talented players, but talent will get you so far. Their ability and desire to want to do the work is what sets them apart. And we'll continue to hopefully with our program and within our program be able to develop cricketers who are able to play at the highest level.
Well, mate, wishing you all the success in the world for that. Just on you personally, Adam, I know you're someone who has a real philosophy around community and giving back as well. And in my research, the Muscular Dystrophy WA organisation is one that's close to your heart. If you can speak to that for a little bit.
Yeah, I've been an ambassador for muscular dystrophy for the last 5 or 6 years now, and it's something that I got involved in at the time, not knowing a lot about what muscular dystrophy was. And look, it's a degenerative condition that has no cure, has no government funding, but has a wonderful community of people around it. And so I play a very small part in helping them and helping them to be able to raise funds to be able to help people with this crippling disease. And it's something that I really enjoy doing, being able to help out. We've got a function coming up on the 30th of June here in Perth, and which I'll be speaking at with Sean Marsh, and we'll be talking much like we've done for the last 50 minutes or so, just talking about the season that's been and just getting some people along to help raise some funds. But yeah, it's something that it gives a bit of what's the word? I guess reality to. We live in a high performance world where I come into the WACA every day and I love my job, but understand that there are people a lot less fortunate out there than what we are, and so the ability to try and help them is something that I enjoy doing, and something that's really important to me. So it's something that I don't talk generally a lot about, but something that's pretty important.
The high performance world that you do mention, how do you on an individual level, Adam, stay productive and manage your time? Because there's so much going on, conflicting priorities. I'm really fascinated by how you just stay at the top of your own game.
Yeah, time management's not my strong suit, I don't reckon, but something I've certainly worked on over the last 5 years. This job can be all encompassing, but it's understanding that you've actually got to take some breaks along the way as well, and when you do have a break, actually have a break, and that's really important. Even little things like when I get home from work, it's putting my phone away until the kids go to bed, and just being present at home, because when I first started the job, I was on my phone the whole time, and even when I was home, I wasn't that present, and it was something that was pointed out to me by my wife, it was something that I wasn't even aware that I was doing. So it's a priority for me now that when I do get home, the phone goes away and I'm just dad. I'm present, and until I put the kids to bed, then anything that needs to be done can be done after that. So for 3 hours of each day, people won't get a message back from me, or I won't answer my phone. And then, finding those little breaks with the family is really important as well. So making sure I'm prioritising time with them. I spend a lot of time away from them, so making sure that when I am at home, I'm really present with them. So it's a work in progress. It's something that I can continue to get better at, but something I'm certainly aware of.
Thanks for sharing that, Adam. And last one, mate. How do you think about legacy? Do you ever think about leaving something better than you found it?
Well, that's the ultimate, isn't it? That's what everyone tries to achieve, is to leave with the organisation or the team or the business in better shape than when you walked in the door. So that's what you do on a daily basis. Legacy is probably something you don't think about until you finish. But ultimately, if I can continue to try and help Western Australian cricket become better each day, I have absolutely no issues getting out of bed in the morning. I love my job. I love what I do. And so for as long as they want me here, I'll continue to do that. But ultimately you try and have some success along the way. You hope that you leave the place in a better way than when you walk through. So legacy is not something you think about daily, but when you finish, hopefully you look back on this time pretty fondly.
Well, Adam, I really appreciate you sharing some fantastic insights on the way you think about coaching and the setup at WA. Wishing you all the success, and thank you for joining me on the show.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
There we have it. It's a wrap. Please visit abidimam.com or friodijaneiro.com to get the show goodies. Thanks to Sidebeat for their support, and of course to you for getting your ears around this one. Until next time, keep smiling, keep scoring.